So I'm really excited to present our next presenter. His name is Patrick Tama. He's the Director of Investments at Scale AI. His topic, super pertinent, successfully integrating AI in your strategy and business operations. Lessons learned from investing in 100 plus AI industry projects. Let's give him a big round of applause. Thanks, Patrick.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Oh, good, perfect. Great. I was a bit nervous 5 minutes ago because there was no one in the room, but this is looking a lot better. Also, I just got here like an hour ago, so I heard there was a fire this morning or something, so glad I missed that. But just a safety reminder, you might get captivated by the presentation that I brought today, but if the fire alarm goes off, please leave the room. I think I have some good content, but it's not worth risking your life. So I'm very glad to be here at the Big Data Summit 2024. Thank you for coming to the presentation. I want to talk about how to successfully integrate AI in your business operations and in your strategy. Just quickly about myself, I have been working in the advanced analytics and AI space for about 8 years. I'm currently an investment director at Scale AI, Canada's AI innovation cluster. I will talk more about what is Scale AI, why do we exist in a moment. And in my previous life, I was a management consultant with the Boston Consulting Group. There are 3 things that I want to talk about today. The first one is, what is Scale AI? Why do we exist? Do we really need another AI organization in Canada? So I will answer that part. Secondly, and I hope that's most relevant for most of you in the room here, if you're an organization and you're looking to get started on your AI journey or accelerate your AI journey, I want to share some lessons learned from the projects that we have invested in, how to build your own AI competency in your organization. And lastly, like journalists say, don't tell me, but show me. I want to show you a couple of real-world examples of companies that we have worked with here in the Canadian ecosystem that have managed to successfully integrate AI and really accelerate their AI journey. But before we go into the heavy content, I wanted to start on a funny note. Problem is, I'm not the funniest person. My wife keeps on telling me my jokes are pretty bad. Fortunately, nowadays, that's not really a problem anymore. So I just went to ChatGPT and asked ChatGPT, tell me 3 funny opening lines for my presentation. And here's what we got. So the first one was, they say AI can replace humans in many jobs. Luckily, giving this presentation isn't one of them yet. Okay, not bad, not bad. The second one was, as someone who's invested in over 100 AI projects, I can tell you this. AI is a lot like teenagers. It can be unpredictable, but when it works, it's brilliant. Okay, slightly better, but I think that my personal favorite was the third one here on the list. If AI were a superhero, it would be a bit like Batman. Impressive gadgets, a bit mysterious, and occasionally needs a good butler to keep it running smoothly. I think that's actually the best one. You can tell me after which one you prefer, and then I'm gonna use that going forward. But let's get back to the serious content. To start off, I want to take a step back and share some research that we have done at Scale AI over the last couple of years, where AI is currently at in Canada. And we did that by breaking down the AI ecosystem in 3 steps. The innovation value chain is kind of a common concept to simplify, understand how the AI ecosystem in a country is performing. The first part of that innovation value chain is about R&D, so all about academic and corporate research centers that work on AI, generate new knowledge and approaches, and drive forward the knowledge that we have, the understanding of AI, which then can be translated in the second phase in early adoption by startups, spin-offs, AI companies to create products and services and sell those products either to customers or to enterprises. And the third step is what we call scale-up. So one step further, really taking pilots within an organization and scaling it and really becoming a AI-enabled organization. So this is kind of the last step in that process. If you reach that level, most of the organizations in your country are AI enabled, that's when we would say like this country, okay, has reached a scale up stage. But there are 3 lessons, and this is also in our research report that we have shared about a year ago, so you can find this on our website. There are 3 key messages that I want to share with you about AI in Canada. The first one is, Canada is definitely an AI R&D powerhouse. It has been for more than a decade. A lot of the advancements on the R&D side come from Canada. We have an incredible density of AI expertise and knowledge in the R&D sector in Canada. One small problem there is that a lot of the IP and patents that are filed here in Canada are actually owned by foreign entities. So that's a bit of a caveat here. But still, overall, R&D is really a strength of Canada when it comes to AI. Number 2, on the early adoption side, what we've seen, especially over the last 10 years, is the birth rate of AI startups has been increasing significantly, especially in Montreal, in Toronto, and increasingly also in Calgary. Those are really ecosystems, AI startup ecosystems that are growing rapidly compared to other ecosystems around the world. That really drives early adoption. But one big problem here is a lot of those AI startups have a hard time finding their first customer in pretty much no matter where, what industry. They have a hard time scaling and selling their products, and that's really the key problem in the early adoption phase. But if you thought this, okay, is bad news, I think the bad news is really on the scale-up phase. If we look right now at industry adoption, so basically the degree of which Canadian organizations are adopting and integrating AI in their operations, that's really where we see the biggest challenge in Canada. And that's why we call the scale-up phase really the Achilles heel of AI in Canada. And just to give you a sense of how does this compare to other countries, because we didn't only look at Canada itself, but we actually looked at a lot of countries and tried to compare them by plotting them on a simple matrix that you can see here. On the y-axis is the supply side. So this is all about research as well as startups that are providing AI knowledge, AI expertise, as well as products and services. On the x-axis is what you can see here, the demand side. So this is really about the industry adoption. And as I just mentioned, when we look at where Canada currently is at, we see Canada is firmly up in the top left corner, which is not bad. We're an R&D powerhouse, but we believe that Canada is at a critical juncture when it comes to AI for the next 10 years and further out. Because there are potentially 2 pathways where we can go from here. The first one is if we don't manage to increase industry adoption of AI in Canada, that will have a negative impact on the supply side as well. We already see some signs of that. Talent moving south, leaving Canada, AI startups that can scale and then either fold or again move to more profitable markets abroad. So that might really hurt the supply side as well. And in the worst case, we will move down to that box here in the top left, in the bottom left corner that's called AI laggards. But there is an opportunity to go another way and basically move to the top right corner where everyone wants to be and become an AI-fueled economy. How do we get there? It's really about driving industry demand in Canada. Because in contrast to the first pathway, that can really lead to a virtuous cycle. So if we see more demand, that will help Canadian startups, AI firms to really grow, become more mature with their products, sell more effectively abroad, and then this hopefully becomes a flying wheel and we can really get to the stage where some countries are already in and become an AI-fueled economy. Of course, you might ask, how do we get there? Sounds pretty straightforward, just have to increase industry demand. Can't be that hard. I would say it's pretty hard. I don't think we have fully solved this puzzle. It's not exactly clear how to do this, I would say. But at Scale AI, Canada's AI Innovation Cluster, again, I'm not pretending we have all the answers, but we do think there are 3 main levers, and that's what our strategy is focused on, 3 key pillars to strengthen industry demand in Canada. The first one is Scale AI really aims to accelerate public and private investment in AI by co-investing and de-risking AI innovation projects. What does that mean in detail? I will go through some examples in the last part of my presentation to really help you understand how does it work, how do we try to do this. Secondly, we are here to facilitate partnerships. I think it's very challenging for Canadian organizations that want to move on AI to really find the right partners. And there are partners in Canada to work with, but kind of cutting to the chase and finding the partners that have the expertise for the problems that you're facing, that can be hard, and we are here to actively make those partnerships, help you find the right partners to work with. And thirdly, we also want that Canadian AI firms don't just stay at home, but really become international champions. So we actively support them together with other agencies to become international champions, because we believe that will make them more mature, more competitive, and again, that would make it more attractive also for Canadian firms to adopt their products and services. Just to give you a rough idea of what we have achieved so far, so in the first mandate from 2018 to 2023, Scale AI invested about $200 million in the Canadian AI ecosystem. That $200 million triggered another $300 million from the Canadian industry. Across 100 projects, those projects will create around $5 billion in economic value through revenue growth and more cost competitiveness of Canadian firms over the next 5 years. And we are very glad that with the support of our government partners, we are going to invest another $100 million in the Canadian ecosystem over the next 5 years. Okay, so at this point, I want to shift gears a little bit now that you know a bit more about Scale AI. And again, I'm happy to talk more about Scale AI after as well, but I don't want to make this just about us. I think it's much more useful for you to share some of the lessons that we have learned from investing in AI projects across industries. So typically the way how we work, we have a team of investment directors, and when a company comes to us, the first thing that we would do is try to understand where are you sitting on what we call the AI maturity curve. Again, it's a simplified concept, but it kind of helps to understand what your needs are as an organization and where you want to go to. So the first phase here is what we would call exploration. You can think of, I recently talked to a manufacturing company, mid-size in Ontario. They've been doing, their operating processes haven't really changed over the last 20 years, but their CEO recently went to a couple of international conferences. Everyone was talking about AI, so he came back and told his C-suite, okay, we have to do something about AI, but we don't really know what to do. So that's kind of the first phase. Some of you might be in those organizations, and I've recently talked to a CEO and gotten similar messages. That's really about developing a preliminary understanding of what AI can do in your industry, what are use cases, what are benchmarks, how do I invest in AI and build capabilities. So I'll talk about an example in that stage just in a minute. The second phase, a bit more mature, typically are companies that have an understanding. They know how AI can play a role in their industry, and they are all about trying to identify specific business problems and starting some pilots to kind of get their hands dirty, developing a POC to grow their internal capabilities, and usually working with partners to do that. And then the last one is scaling. So you see there are some similarities with the innovation value chain framework. We are not that creative, so we kind of got inspired by that first framework here. But the scaling phase is then taking pilots and really scaling them, as the name says. And I would say for us, a company in that phase would have the majority of their business processes enabled or enhanced by AI. I haven't really seen any company other than, even I would say maybe OpenAI, et cetera, not all 100% of their business processes are enhanced or run by AI. I don't think it's a realistic objective, but the majority of your business processes touched or enhanced by AI, this is what we would see for companies in that third phase. Okay, so just a few more details on those three phases, because I think those are, if you are in one of those phases, it's usually kind of difficult for companies to zoom out and think through how do I go from here to the next level? What do I do? And what I'm telling you here, it's not that this is the only way how to do it, but looking at the projects and the companies that we have worked with, those are some commonalities, some common lessons learned across those three phases. For companies in that exploration phase, typically what we would see in terms of key initiatives, it's about custom training programs to educate your key stakeholders in your organization to, as I said, understand what AI can do for you in your industry. And this would also include defining an AI strategy, which once again does not mean that you have to become from a traditional manufacturer an AI-first company. It's really understanding where are the areas where AI machine learning can drive productivity gains for your business, for the problems that you're facing. If you're a manufacturing company and labor shortage is your main problem, you might want to think about what are the business processes where I'm facing the most labor shortage, what kind of automation and prediction tools can help me to face that problem. So it's that kind of thinking more so than, okay, how can we become an AI company? In terms of organization model, I think that's an important piece that often gets overlooked when thinking through how to build an AI competency. How do I do this as an organization? Here, I think the key part in that early phase, it's really about identifying an AI champion in your organization. This could be an existing role. If you have a chief information officer, a chief data officer, those are typically good candidates. Some more and more companies also go the way and define a chief artificial intelligence officer, a CIO or a CAIO. I'm not sure yet what the standard term will be. I think that can make sense if the scope for the job is big enough, but frankly, in more small or medium-sized organizations, I don't think that's needed. This can definitely be attached to the mandate of one of your existing C-suite players. So if we go to the second phase, to piloting, it's a bit different here. So as I mentioned, the key focus is on you have an initial understanding and you want to get started on what are the pilots, the use cases that we can drive forward to gain more maturity. Typically, what we would see here is companies would build a small centralized team with a mix of business and technical resources. And the main purpose for them is to identify pilot opportunities and then identifying partners to work with. Whether those are AI vendors or academia, could be either or. But often that's the way to go in that phase. And once again, I know it's not easy to find those partners, but we are definitely here at Scale AI to help you find those partners. And in the last phase, before we move to concrete examples, in the scaling phase, as I mentioned, it's about building a muscle that goes beyond just one pilot after the next, after the next. It's taking a pilot that usually would not really touch the production environment directly and scaling it so that your whole organization will be enabled by that new, whatever it is you have been developing in a pilot phase. So to give you an example for demand forecasting, if you have done a POC, a pilot first, maybe that wasn't, it hasn't been used for production 100%. But in this phase, it's really taking it, integrating it into your business process. So if you have monthly meetings with your category managers, with your business planners, instead of using the Excel, etc., that has been used before, it's taking that tool and really using it consistently to increase productivity. That's really the scaling phase. Frankly, what we see the most in this phase, especially for larger organizations, it just makes sense to have a center of excellence in your organization. I will walk through an example for Unilever, Pratt & Whitney. They did similar things because it's important here to have a center of excellence that acts like a hub and spoke model. You have a critical mass of AI talent in-house that is centralized at a corporate level, but then you would have experts embedded in the major business units that would help you to understand the business problems on the ground and bring back feedback those problems to the center of excellence to build solutions for it. That's kind of the gold standard for most organizations. Okay, let me pause here for a second because I know this sounds like a lot and some of you might think, okay, how do I ever get there? I may be stuck in that first phase and I don't even know how to accelerate from this point. The good news is Scale AI was really structured to support you along that end-to-end journey. So to us, it doesn't matter what your maturity level is. If you're willing and you're looking for ways to accelerate your AI journey, we have really structured our organization with programs that are supposed to help you across those different phases. Our first program, the training program, can provide up to 50% of reimbursement for customized training programs. So if you're looking to educate your key stakeholders to develop that preliminary understanding, we're here to support you with that. We can find the right partners to work with, and we can cover up to 50% of the cost. For project funding, we have two types of funding. For pilot projects, so smaller ones, we can cover up to 50%. For larger ones, we can cover up to 40%. So I think it's important to take a step back. If you realize compared to not a lot of companies do that, and not a lot of countries, do that. Like really trying to support their industry to accelerate on AI. I think it's an amazing program that we have here. We know this is essential for Canada to drive that industry demand for AI over the next 10, 20 years to get to become an AI-fueled economy. So this is it's a great support program for Canadian industry. We also provide access to more than 100 AI startups by working with incubators and accelerators directly as part of our acceleration program. And as I mentioned here at the bottom, I said this a couple of times now, because of our position in the ecosystem, we're really here to help you identify the right partners. So if you are a bank, or let's say you're an insurance company and fraud detection is your big problem, that costs you, let's say, 5-10% of your bottom line every year. Finding the right partner, Canadian companies that have worked on this problem, have developed solutions, that's what we're here for, identifying those partners and then helping you implement those solutions to drive productivity for your business. Okay, so in this last section before we go to, and I'm gonna speed up a little bit so that we have enough time for Q&A, but I just wanna show you 3 quick examples of how companies have gone about this at the different phases, different stages where they were at. Ericsson Canada, we started working with them in 2019. They had this global artificial intelligence accelerator plan, which sounded great on paper, and they had a very good AI strategy. The problem was they realized when they turned around, we have about 10 people in Ericsson Canada that really know about AI. That's probably not going to be enough to execute on this strategy. So the first thing that they did was defining a really comprehensive custom training program. We brought them together with HEC Montréal, the executive education team there. This goes back to my previous point. Believe me, the density of AI expertise in Canadian academic institutions is pretty much unparalleled. Like HEC Montréal is just one example. In Montreal, we have at least 5 or 6 universities with executive education teams that have programs and expertise in AI. It's really hard to find this in other cities in the world. So it's a good opportunity. They work with HEC Montréal. This was a multi-month program. I think it's an important lesson here. If you think about custom training, it's not about just a few workshops. It's really an effort over several months to educate your key stakeholders that are going to be your champions for this in your organization going forward. Second example, one of our pilot projects. So Sanofi Canada has been pretty active. Some of you might know they have a big vaccine production site in Toronto. They have worked with the government, but also with the AI ecosystem closely for several years. They had a big problem with their raw material quality. So it's I didn't know about this, believe me, but I learned a lot through the projects that we work on, which is great. But raw material quality is a big problem, especially for vaccine production. If the raw material quality is subpar, you might have to throw out your batches, your vaccine batches, and that can not only cost Sanofi a lot of money, but it also can drive drug shortages. So Catalyze here was is an AI company that we help them to partner with. Catalyze is developing an AI solution that kind of predicts based on a lot of data what is the raw material going to be for this process and what are the best process parameters to optimize the production process so that we can ensure quality of the product. And that, in the end, helps Canadians get access to vaccines more reliably. And then the last example, Unilever Canada. Some of you might heard of their recent announcement because they're investing big in Toronto. But we started working with them several years ago, like 2019, 2020. They were really interested. I mean, they're a CPG, so as you can imagine, demand forecasting and promo optimization are 2 big opportunities for them. There's a lot of data there, and they're spending a lot of money on this. So they were looking for Canadian companies to work with that have expertise in those 2 areas. We brought them together with Laris and Theory and Practice, 2 AI companies theory and practice located in Vancouver, Laris in Ottawa, and they developed specific solutions that are now commercializing for CPG and retail companies globally. They had 2 projects here with us, but the more interesting piece is as a result of those projects, Unilever now announced their Center of Excellence will be located in Toronto. I think it's a big success for Toronto to have a multinational CPG company have their global AI lab-focused Center of Excellence headquartered in Toronto. They are making a lot of investments, and it's great for Canadian AI firms that get an opportunity to work with Unilever and then expand at a global scale. Okay, so I just want to summarize the key takeaways, hopefully, that you took away from this presentation. And as I mentioned before, I'm really keen to continue this conversation if any of this was interesting to you. But lesson number 1, Canada is an R&D AI powerhouse. If you travel abroad, people start talking to you about AI and they say, oh, Canada, are they even on the map when it comes to AI? Please remind them of Joshua Bengio, of Geoffrey Hinton. A lot of the advancements in AI actually come from Canada. Neural networks was invented in Canada. So please make sure that we get the credit that we deserve for this. But we are at a critical juncture, as I mentioned. Can we increase industry demand in Canada or not? I think it's going to be a critical question for how we will be affected by the AI revolution over the next 10, 15 years. Second, if you are an organization and you're looking to advance and use AI, the good news is there's a proven path how to do this to shorten the path to value and time to impact. I just showed you a couple of examples. And the third key takeaway is Scale AI as an organization, as a non-profit organization, really here to support Canadian industry and work with you step by step to accelerate your journey. And with that, I want to end my presentation. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to have a follow-up conversation, whether it's about AI topics in general, just geek out about technical things, or talking specifically about how to help your organization. Please reach out, and I am looking forward to any questions. You're close enough.
We're missing prerequisites to scale AI in Canada. What are those? Are they technical, organizational, mindset deficiencies? Sort of, what are the prerequisites?
Yeah, I would say the list is long, so I try to focus on a few. One thing for sure is around urgency, so that's more of a mindset thing, I think, around C-suite executives in Canada. I think many people say that it has to do with competition in a lot of industries that we have here that makes Canadian companies a bit more hesitant to invest in new technologies. So I think there's a bit of a mindset thing around urgency. I hear this a lot from especially smaller companies. When they go to the US, doing a pilot for like $50K, it's kind of a no-brainer for a lot of US companies. Getting a Canadian industry company commit to a 50,000 pilot, not that easy, not that easy. So mindset for sure. One other thing that's not really, I'm not sure how unique this is to Canada, but legacy infrastructure. Like, I wasn't so much aware of this before, but we did more research and looked at cloud adoption and legacy IT systems, and Canada is not faring well compared to a lot of OECD companies. And it might not be across all industries, but like in manufacturing and some other industries, I think the legacy there is a problem that we're dealing with. So those, I think, were two that I would mostly focus on, but I'm sure there are other ones that I can't think of right now, but they're definitely in our report.
What did you find the best way to shift the mindset would be to sort of appeal to the C-suite?
Yeah, so I give you my opinion. Again, that doesn't mean that this is the truth, but I think from what I have seen, so as I showed you, our program, we provide funding, it's non-dilutive funding to de-risk those investments. So Sure, some might argue, okay, this is not the way to go, like government providing subsidies in a way to convince companies to invest in this when this should be an imperative. And I can partially understand this, but just from seeing how it has worked in the past is, once you've done a successful pilot, and one key part is you're measuring the impact of that pilot from day one. That's something we're really, really adamant about when we invest in projects. You have to have a robust methodology. What are the operational KPIs, the financial KPIs that will be touched by this project? Out of a sudden, you see it makes it a lot harder to have those conversations with C-suite. You speak kind of the language that they understand. Okay, you invested 500,000 in this raw materials platform, and it helped us to decrease scrap batches by 10%, and quality by 5%. And payback period is like 2 years. ROI is 3x. Those are kind of the data that really helps in those conversations. So that's why it's not only about starting pilots, but being successful, especially on your first couple of pilots. So if you work with us, again, we have good benchmarks. We have a really good, I would say, methodology how to think about this to make sure your first couple of pilots are successful. That's the way, I think, the easiest way to convince C-level to then go and invest more.
We just have time for one more question, and just so you guys know, now is break as well, so we'll adjourn at 3:45 in the main room. But go ahead with your question. Thanks.
Okay, it's on. Yeah, so I don't mean to be negative, but the presentation, in your presentation, what you're presenting as a strong Canadian position in AI, to me, it's very worrisome. I didn't know this actually. Being in the top left quadrant, if I were a global company and I'm looking to own IP, I'll go to Canada because I'll find the skills to build IP, own it. Canada doesn't own it, doesn't benefit from it, other than research or fundamental kind of stuff. And then it's also, I'm taking, it's a kind of easy path to a brain drain, where you take Canadians out, the best. And then, so this is not solving the fundamental problem. I think the problem is not in the fact that you have a strong research community or strong education system. The problem is looks to me like it's systemic, where we seem to not be able to create companies and grow them. We are not able. It's just simple, as simple as that. Even if there is a market, Canadian companies prefer to import whatever was initially built in Canada. ChatGPT is a good example, actually. It was University of Toronto, the research. But any Canadian company now who wants to benefit from the results of that research would have to pay expensive fees to a foreign company. Yeah. And so the taxpayers probably are subsidizing some of that research. And then you don't get it for free or for a fair shot at it. So to me, it looks like a very grim kind of, sorry guys, but it doesn't look very positive at all. If you wanted to dump money in a black hole, this is what you do. Be in the top left quadrant, dump money there, and then drain your brain power to other countries. And also, they get the IP registered and you don't own it. Yeah. Thank you, Canada.
No, I mean, I think that was a very accurate description of the status quo. I agreed that. I think I mentioned that one big issue for sure is you have a lot of international companies right now that have their research centers in Canada because the talent here is great. And then when they need great talent for their operations to implement this in practice, they often source the Canadian talent. So I fully agree with you. And that's kind of the risk of that is the downward spiral, the downward path that I mentioned. I just think, we can't sit here and just accept it. So we have to think about solutions. Again, I'm not saying what I showed to you is the truth or the only solution. We're trying this approach. We're seeing some successful, promising results of Canadian firms that are managing to grow. It is a hard journey, I fully agree. But yeah, I'm happy to report more, how things are going.
Well said, Patrick. All right, well, if you guys want to come up here and bother Patrick, feel free to do so. But we'll close off this session. Break is until 3:45, and then we're in the main room again.